welcome back to another episode of Out of the Blank Podcast. Kasper Michaels is back again.
Hello, everybody. Welcome to 2025. Yes, it is.
It is 2025. It's going by quick, dude.
It is. It's kind of crazy. I'm in the I'm in the voiceover industry, and last year the VO industry really got kicked in the teeth by AI, which was quite funny. And the reason I bring it up is I just saw this thing the other day. Do you ever use VLC?
I don't even know what it is.
VLC is a media player. It's probably it's for like PC or Mac, but it's like the number one media player to play. Say you've downloaded an anime from somewhere,
Oh, yeah, it
and
does subtitles for it. You
yeah,
told me that. Yeah.
but the thing about with the subtitles, which is I was looking into it, is not just the subtitles. What VLC does now is it takes the so you're watching One Piece and you're watching, the actress that plays Luffy or whatever. It now takes her voice, dubs it into English, and gives that to you in real time. So that you can now watch One Piece in English with all the original Japanese voice actors who are now dubbed in English. Now, of course, there's still going to be some issues with that because when you're taking one language and converting it into another real time, like I'm studying Japanese right now, and I could tell you flat out that, or it's like German. Like you try and Google translate German, there's a lot of stuff in there that's not missing. But the fact that this thing can take that voice, convert it into English, and give that to you as a dub in real time is crazy. It's kind of exciting and it's kind of scary all at the same time. But I guess what's been happening lately is, from what I understand, there's a thing called localizers, anime localizers, and what they do is they take the Japanese version of the anime, turn it into English, and then they dub it out there. They're actually not supervised, is what I used to just assume they would just take the script and zip it over. But what, particularly in North America, California in particular, is what they will do is they will take a script and they'll change it so that it's talking about politics, so that it's talking about like trans rights, and it's talking about the LGBT community, and pardon me if I messed up my alphabet there, but where that's not even in the anime anywhere, and who wants to, I guess, watch an anime about that? I guess so.
Don't offend the
I'm
LGBTQA.
trying not to offend, but what it is when they've given you a script and you change it and you make it political, nobody wants politics in their cartoons.
You know what I just found out?
What's that?
Is they added ADHD to the LGBTQ, the alphabet letters. And I saw that and I went, fuck.
It's I know, like I know this. Uh, what am I pausing on it? There's these couple of the lesbian women who said to me, "I am so offended that our alphabet is getting much longer." She goes, "I want nothing to do with all this stuff that's going on over there. In fact, I have nothing to do with it. Me and my partner, we're fine. We were going along fine, dealing with our own, a little bit of, misogyny and weirdness kind of thing, and the occasional comment we would get from someone. But now we have to deal with all this other stuff, like men going into women's bathrooms." And she's like, "I want nothing to do with that." I
I
said,
think the world tries to stay away from it as much as possible. The only problem I've seen with it is that if you're on Tinder, some guys will identify as girls and you're swiping, you're like, that's not what I'm looking for.
it's kind of it is kind of crazy kind of thing that I think the world did something weird. Like we've been bonkers for like 4 years. Like shoplifting is not a crime, all this kind of stuff. And like it's like what? Like what? What are we doing? I saw this YouTube short the other day. These two little girls get, well, little. Yeah, they're like 10 and 12, and they get busted for shoplifting, and they're sitting in the back of the police car, and they don't know there's a camera there. And one goes, "What happened, man?" And the other one went, "It's a new law, isn't it? Shoplifting's now illegal. Where I grew up, stealing was always illegal." So it's, but I'm not quite sure what they did, like, because I don't know if they have those. Well, actually, they do have those laws in the UK, because I was talking to the manager of the local shop I go into, and he was saying it's a bugger. He goes, it's not worth us trying to catch these people shoplifting, because they could turn around and sue us for, you know, violence or something. And he said, strangely enough, he goes, I don't care if they get out of here with like some bread and milk, but it's when they steal the baskets, I have to pay for the baskets.
I
And
think it
he goes,
started when the woman got burned at McDonald's and she sued.
yeah, you mean with the
Coffee?
coffee cup?
Yeah.
That was, oh God, that was a while ago, wasn't
And
it?
that's what I'm saying. It started then, and then everything after that became like everybody was just sue happy. I mean, everybody's always been sue happy. I literally was just driving the other day, and a person hopped out right in front of when I was driving, but I was only going like 10 miles an hour, and he fell to the ground. And
In
then,
front of your car.
yeah, in front of my car. And I was like, I didn't hit you. And everyone like around was seeing it, and they're like, he didn't hit him. And it was just like this guy got up and looked at me, and he thought I was going to go, I guess, a little bit faster so he could turn it into an incident. But everyone's looking for a quick payout, dude. You're telling me if a FedEx truck ran over your foot right now, you wouldn't sue them? I would sue the hell out of them and never have to work a day in my life.
Oh yeah. Speaking of, I'm going to touch on did I must have did I tell you what happened to my sister?
Yeah, yeah, yeah. I didn't know if you wanted to talk about it in the
You know
podcast.
what? I do want to talk about that, because that's we haven't got the recording yet, which is why I haven't got any farther. But I just want to let you know, one of the things that can happen, uh, like my brother passed away a couple weeks ago. Actually, well, no, it was like 8 days ago now, and of a heart failure. Now, when my sister found him, she called 911. And for some reason, the 911 operator, we still don't know why, because we don't know who the 911 operator was or anything like that, um, was quite rude to my sister, and was implying that, that she'd allowed all this to happen, and that she wasn't doing enough and all this stuff. And then uh, the police show up and start interrogating my sister, because the 911 operator told them she admitted to killing my brother.
Dude, oh my God. It's, I know it's the second time you're telling me this, but this is so fucking
And I
wild.
know, and you kind of go, what? What? Like, when she was trying to explain it to me, of course, she's in hysterics when she's calling me on the phone. And I still kind of get upset about it, because I wasn't there when it happened. But so imagine finding a loved one passed away, and you're being interrogated by the police. Now, she got interrogated. There was these two female police officers who were interrogating her, and then since learned that a staff sergeant showed up, who was supposed to sort of like be running the show. So there's now a coroner, two female police officers, the staff sergeant, uh, and then my sister, and then the body of my brother, and all in this little area kind of thing. And they're interrogating her right there in the house. They didn't take her anywhere. So the staff sergeant comes up and he goes, he saw the situation, he knew what was going on. He was listening to what my sister was saying, and he said, "I'm really sorry. It's procedure. I have to ask you these questions again." And so he put her through, and he asked her the first question, and she just started breaking down. And he put a hand on her arm, and he said, "I'm really sorry. I have to do this." And so he just asked the next sort of five questions very quickly, and he sort of noted the answer. So we followed up on it, and of course it's going to be red tape. To get the recording, it's going to be about 30 days, and of course they want $20 for it.
I'll give you the $20, but I want to play it
We
on my
don't mind.
show.
We don't mind paying the $20, but it's just like, of course, it's going to be $20. And uh, we've been talking to some people about it, and they said, you should file a complaint, even if you don't listen to the tape, to what she says. Um, and actually, because it does kind of make sense, but I'm not quite sure. I don't know my legal standing on, like, if somebody accuses you of killing someone else, is that against the law?
Well, do they have any evidence? That's the point.
Well, no, it was a phone call kind of
Then,
thing. That's
yeah,
just
it's
it's
against the law.
Yeah. So, and I'm not quite sure what that is. So there's a whole, now our whole thing is, I don't know if this will ruin the case or anything, but our whole thing is, we don't really care if this person gets fired or anything like that. I mean, it's because we don't know what's going on here, but we are going to sue the city for emotional damage kind of
Yeah,
thing.
get
And
paid, my guy.
Yeah, but it's just such a weird thing because you watch the TV, you watch 911 calls, you've seen, I used to watch 911, with what was that? William Shatner, didn't he do 911 for a while? Uh, uh, and then you don't see any of that stuff happening. And then when it happens to you, you kind of go, "Are you kidding?" Like, and it was she's in a small town. Well, it's 170,000 people approximately. It's not small town, but it's not like a big city kind of thing. And so everybody, like the police department, is going to know this case. They're going to know, like you just reference it, and they're going to go, "Oh yeah, that," because of the stuff that happened. Because it was obvious that they were there interrogating her. So a few days later, I let about 5 days go, and I said, "Has anybody followed up on this at all? Because you were accused of murder. Really, that's why you were being interrogated. Did you kill your brother?" And then we go, "Why did you think you killed your brother?" All this kind of stuff. And so from that, she said, "No, no one's followed this up at all." And I go, "Isn't that kind of weird? That because there's so many witnesses. Now, mind you, the witnesses are all law enforcement.
Yeah.
If anything about it was good, or if any good came out of it, because there was contention about how my brother passed away, the coroner had to rush an autopsy. So normally there wouldn't be an autopsy. You would just, you do all the funeral arrangement stuff. So we had to have an autopsy done. And we didn't pay for it. That's done by the city. And they said he died of congestive heart failure. Three of his arteries. He was basically a stupid idiot. He was a walking bomb, basically. He had three of his arteries were like 75% clogged. He needed a triple bypass. He should have been going to the doctor and caught it, but he didn't. This is a PSA to all you men and women out there.
I mean, dude, you don't know. You could be like me. I don't like going to the doctor a whole lot. I don't know if you remember my guest Tim Smith, but he had for I don't know if he wants me to put this out there, but for like what was it? A month he was in recovery from brain surgery.
Wow. Yeah.
So
Yeah. I'm not a big fan of myself. I've had, particularly with my own heart attack, I've had my own sort of logistic issues with trying to deal with bureaucracy and when you're dealing with a system where you go in and you go, I don't think the medications are working. Can we change them? And their answer is, we'll take more. I go, no, we need to talk about what I'm taking. Why is this doing this? Oh, we don't have time for that. I don't know if you've ever gone in and I think most GPs will schedule you for like a 15-minute time slot, and you're not allowed to go over that. That's why they don't want you to bring in like a laundry list of stuff that's wrong with you that we're going to talk about. And then half the time you don't even get a chance to discuss what is wrong with you. Um, and I don't know if you've ever had that situation where you hurt yourself, you call the doctor, they go, "We got some time next week." So you go in, and next week you're no longer in pain. So you're trying to describe what was happening and it's not there anymore. And they look at you like, "Well, you're wasting our time." And I go, "No, actually, the fact that I had to wait 10 days for but because you don't know if something's happened." So, um, d- dealing with like that type of thing. So yeah, I'll definitely keep you in the loop when we find out what's going on about it. But we have started proceedings, and we've got a lawyer, so we're going to find out what's going on. But it's really crazy kind of thing. Like what they put my sister through during that whole thing, the fact that they had to do it while my brother was there, that was like, what is wrong with you people? Like,
I think it's just the times, man. You don't know anymore. Especially if you're like just showing up to a scene and you're hearing that someone just murdered their sibling and then that's the wrong
well, no, you
information.
don't see. Here's the thing: like you can't even hold it against the police because they're doing what they're trained to do. Like they've been told on the way there, you've got someone in there who's just admitted to killing her brother. Where she walked in and found him, and she's like, and she basically went into hysterics right away. So you can't blame them now. How they dealt with it, though, that's a little different. How they um, they're sort of they sat these two women came in, and I can only take it from my sister's point of view, but she said they came in and they stood in the kitchen where she was, or she's sitting on the sofa, just melting in a puddle, and the coroner is there, and these two police officers didn't say a word and just stared at her for like 10 minutes, just stared at her, waiting for her to do something or crack or something. And eventually they both came over. And then the first thing out of their mouth was, "Why did you kill your brother?" And she just went, immediate, like, what do you do? Like imagine the panic or the upset and the mental stress. Like she
Yeah,
said,
she's
uh,
kept it composed from what I've heard.
well,
So
she has now, but actually she said to me the other day, she said, "I will never forget this moment because of how it was all hammered into her head." And she said, "I can't live in this house anymore." So there's all these byproducts of, because now she's got to, every time she walks into this certain area, she sees her sofa and she goes, "I cannot be here anymore." Well, not a lot of us can afford to just get up and move kind of thing. So there's a bit of trauma there. And that's sort of like a backsplash uh, to what actually happened. Now, the coroner turned out to be lovely. When she actually saw what was happening, she came over and dealt with some stuff, but she had to do her own job. And then what she did was when she found out the heart attack happened, that immediately meant my sister was innocent. So there's that. And then though the problem was, she said, "And now you have to deal with a funeral home right now." And we went, because normally there's a bit of time to decide where it's going to go and
not when you
stuff. And
cut them open, though.
that's the thing. So they've already done that. And then now she's like, "We can't keep him in the city morgue anymore. So he's got to go." And so there was a bit of panic there. Now, the interesting thing about that was we were talking about, he'd been talking about, I think we mentioned it, a Viking funeral. And I'm like, "Are you really?" And so, but of course, at the time when you're talking about it, you're getting hammered and all this stuff, and everyone thinks it's a great thing. And now it comes time to do it, and you're like, "Oh yeah."
Yeah, but your brother wanted to be put in a firework, right?
There was that. He was like, "Oh, that he got stoned on mushrooms," and he was talking about he wanted to be shot in the fireworks. But his final thing was, he's actually always wanted to. He's got a couple things going. He wants to be. He wants a Viking funeral buried in a Philadelphia Flyers jersey
My guy.
because he loves the Flyers, and like that orange is like his favorite color. And we went, "Yeah, we can do that." So what we did though was, we had him cremated, which makes decision making easier. And then what we're going to do is we're going to do a mini Viking funeral. We're going to find a boat somewhere, like a little boat, and we're just going to douse that thing in lighter fluid and send it off to the sea, probably on the coast. We might get arrested for something, I don't know, but that's probably what we're going to do. So
If anybody tries to
it's
arrest you, just say I will be suing you guys soon. So I'll just add this to the list.
well, it is you kind of you want to think about it, like there's so much stuff going on about, like there some things haven't changed, which is kind of funny. You look up cremation and you immediately see cremation is bad, and then it's bad if you're Catholic because then you can't go to heaven, and it's bad if you're environmentalist because you put 42 different pollutants into the atmosphere. And you kind of go, are are you serious? Like, because
Sam
imagine what
Kinison was right. They don't let you die in peace.
no, they do not. And the thing about death, which we've revisited, particularly after my dad passed away, but uh, death is for the living, like, because now you deal with all the stupid stuff that happens after, like, and the stupid questions and the stuff, and those people who come in who are like, "Yeah, it's like, what happened?" And I'm go, who are you? "Oh, I'm a friend of his from, like, when," I go, "When's the last time you spoke to him?" "I don't know, 18 years ago." And I go, I don't think he'd want any of you, like, but you do have people who sort of crawl out of the woodwork who want personal details. They want to know this and that, and you're low. And then there's the ones who we immediately got inundated with. when's the service? And we went, there's probably going to be something private for immediate family, but I don't know if we'll do it big
Yeah, I
because there
don't
are
know
people
why
who
you'd
just,
open it
yeah.
up for people.
Well, what is it about like if you're, I guess if you're religious and you have like a funeral, like I could imagine like if you're like a famous person or something and people want to pay their respects. But again, even that, funerals are for the living. So whoever's the star or whatever, they're dead. You can pay your respects anywhere. You don't necessarily have to have this big service where you've got like 10,000 people and they're lying in the streets and stuff. But I guess some people just, they need to do it. We have run into a couple people who've said they, they're almost obligated to say, sorry, man. And then I'm obligated to go, that's okay. And then, like, and I have to heart their post. I found here we go. After we'd put up the post on Facebook, my phone, I had to turn my phone off because of course it's just, it's dinging and beeping all the time and turn the sound off and then it just, and I just, yeah. And so there's so many people were like, hey, sorry, man. So, and I found myself going through each post, hearting each post going, thank you, thank you, thank you. And then I got about halfway through and I went, what am I doing? Like, why am I doing? Like, I don't need to acknowledge to these people that, and they actually, strangely enough, they don't actually need to say anything. They don't need to post anything. I know some people are doing it because because they know me or they knew my brother and they're honestly sorry. But there's some people who are like, hey, sorry for your loss, man. And it's somebody who I haven't spoken to in like 47 years. And you go, oh, you didn't have to say anything. It's all good. But I think we all feel we're raised as a community to kind of feel guilty about. You ever said to somebody, they'll mention, you mentioned to someone, oh, they've had a death in the family, or my father, I'll used to happen all the time. I go, yeah, my dad passed away, and they're like, oh, I'm sorry, and I go, why are you sorry? You didn't even
Yeah,
know him. You don't know me,
just a
but
forceful reaction.
yeah, it's just a reaction we have. It's we've been raised to go, oh, I'm supposed to feel sorry. Okay, so there you go. There's my post, and then you go, okay, I did my job. Okay, guilt done. I guess I posted. So it's been a barnstormer. I'll tell you all this stuff, but I will definitely, as we discussed, when all this stuff goes on, you'll know for sure.
I'll be adding that tape onto this episode for sure.
It's all the one thing I know. My sister, she said, I'd like you to get the tape, but I don't want you to listen to it because and not because she was guilty or anything like that. She said, I was hysterical. It's just not pleasant. And I went, okay, I respect that. And then I said, and then she said, well, I'm going to listen to it later. She's going to sit down with a friend and listen to it kind of thing. But it's all down to,
Does she have it?
no, that's the thing. Like she's applied for it and they said it'll take up to 30 days, which again
It's a long time.
it is. And it's sort of like how when you apply for a passport and they tell you, oh, it'll be, like 2 months to get this. And you go, why? It should be, it shouldn't be that long. And for something like this, basically what they're doing is they're covering, particularly for something like this, what I'm guessing is there's legal stuff. I'm guessing someone has to listen to it to go, you can't release that.
Yeah, because you can't be a dispatcher telling someone that they murdered.
But if they do that, that's immediately going to bring up, like with the case, if they're not going to release it because it might incriminate the department or incriminate whatever, or it's mainly this one person, whoever was the dispatcher. And for whatever reason, they decided to pull this boneheaded move kind of thing. And, or else the police wouldn't have did what they did. And it would be one thing if the two female officers just did it, but it was when the supervising sergeant showed up when he said, because there's been this accusation, I need to ask you these questions. That was where it really hit in where for my sister, where she went, they're serious about this. This isn't a joke. She actually was sitting there thinking this is just a really bad joke. And then she was like, well, this is a nightmare. But she couldn't, she was like, why are you asking me these? this is bizarre. Why are you asking me these questions? And so if they held it, yeah, that would be something, wouldn't it, kind of thing. So I think that would be more money.
Yeah, a
It's,
little bit more. I wanted to go back to what you were saying about voice acting, about with AI coming in there, because I think we've touched upon it a few times. But dude, there's more from the last time we spoke. What was it? Last week? That was when we
yeah,
spoke.
yeah, I think yeah.
Another Dragon Ball Z guy died.
Really, which one?
The one of the animators or something like that. He died at like 92.
You know what? I wonder if this is all about. I wonder if they're just seeing AI and going, "That's it, I'm checking out," kind of
I
thing. Although
hope not.
no, you think about it and you go, the thing about it is,
You can't say AI would replace your jobs because it will never happen because people love to go see people that are voice
well, it's the
actors.
same thing with what happened was with AI. Just real quick, my view on AI is it's this new thing, and um, people are going to try it, and initially there's going to be job loss because it's everyone's going for this new thing. But if you've ever listened to AI do anything, the moment I hear that in a video or something, I twig out. Not just because I'm a voice actor, but because it's nonsense. Like I I torture myself with when I'm doing work in the background and stuff. I put on this one website that mainly does Korean mangas that are narrated by AI that sort of tells you what's going on in the manga and the AI. And the very first time you hear the word protagonist, the protagonist of the manga, and you go, or the bow and arrow, and you go, he took his bow and arrow. You go, oh, and then, or they bowed to the king. And you hear all these sort of little things and you go, okay, why am I listening to this? This is because it just takes you right out. And well, the other thing is there's no inflection and or the inflection is in really bad places. And yeah, AI is going to take jobs initially because companies are just going to try it because it's this new thing. That a lot of companies that are using AI are ones that weren't going to pay you anyway, that much. But I believe in about 2 years, once it's going to peak and it's going to come down, and then people are going to go, can we go back to using the real guys kind of thing? Now, with anime and stuff like that, it's very different. I don't know if those guys will lose their jobs right out because there's a lot of, you need a lot of emoting and all that kind of stuff in the acting. But uh, we'll see. We'll see how the other stuff goes. But yeah, it's weird that the Dragon Ball Z. I think we're just of a time where that's the age where because it came out at a time, and so they're all sort of the same age, and they're all,
I'm
or
not
maybe
ready
they're
to
just,
lose my childhood yet.
fed up with the industry, and they're
I
like,
don't know.
that's it, I'm
I hope
checking
not.
out.
But I've never questioned my immortality more than I have probably this past 2 weeks, mostly because like all my childhood stuff is going away. And then
That's the thing. I grew up with a lot of like I knew a lot of the guys who did the Dragon Ball Z, the original Dragon Ball Z stuff from the '90s. It was all done at a place called Ocean Sound in Vancouver, and that was still like anime dubbing was still a weird thing kind of thing. Like anime wasn't as big as it was now, and so there was a lot of you know, what was it, Inuyasha, Oniyasha, something like that. There was a couple big animes that were all done by the same people in Vancouver, and that's also the time around like the Transformers, He-Man, um, Thundercats, all this kind of, She-Ra, all this kind of stuff. And these were all in the '90s, all the stuff they were doing in the '90s. In fact, the very first thing that I did, which we talked about, was in the '90s. That was Hot Wheels accelerators. And that was all. And when you're in the room with these people and you go, at the time, they weren't really that big kind of thing. Um, and it's interesting to look back. Like they were big voiceover people big in the voiceover. And in the '90s, voiceover wasn't really a thing. And I think back in those times now, the powerhouses that were in that room when I was there, like because they went on to do such crazy things. And I ended up, I did some acting, and then I ended up coming to the UK. Uh, Probably, I think it was probably detrimental to my North American voiceover career, but I think it's probably the best thing I ever did because I found my own niche over here, um, which has been really, really good. Uh, I think I probably would have worked more then, and now I would be like selling real estate, sort of like what happens when you're like like somebody. I have a lot of people always say because when I was drafted in the Chicago Blackhawks, and then basically hit by a motorcycle the day after draft. Like I wasn't even in the draft long enough to get a jersey, which sucked. It was just really sucked. But the I think about it now, and I used to think back on like when I was in my 40s, and I would go, I wouldn't be playing now. I'd be either doing color or I would be, what do retired hockey players do? Most of them, some of them play golf, but a lot of them go into like real estate for some reason. And because it's usually what it is when you've been a hockey player, particularly if you've been in the show, you don't know what else to do because that was your entire life for 35 years. And then all of a sudden you're not doing it anymore and you go, what do I do now? And really the only thing back then to do without going back to school was like I'll be I'll sell houses. I'll just, because not many of them are, it depends. Like some of them could have like a family that was in construction or something and go into that. But there was none of these guys were going to start. And their heads had been rattled around so much. They weren't ready they're not going back to school. So, so that's what I would have been doing. But now I'm still doing what I'm doing. I'm quite happy with it. But so you're a Flyers fan? I never would have guessed.
Did you ever think what would happen if you went to the Chicago Blackhawks and you did that? Do you think you would have lasted long just because there's so many injuries?
I I did I think I would have, depending on how it went, I would have been right up. I was the guys on the team used to call me Mr. Bing, um, because I don't know if you're familiar with a lot of the hockey awards that they have, but there's the Lady Bing Trophy, which is most sportsmanlike player of the year. Typically went to Wayne Gretzky, like in the end, and they were talking like the NHL had a whole bunch of like awards that were basically not a lot of people talk about. There's the Stanley Cup, but there was all these most goals scored, most this, most assists, and the one that was one sportsmanlike or most actually the Lady Bing was most gentlemanly conduct, I believe is the trophy. And so the guys I used to play with used to call me Mr. Bing. So I don't know if what that meant, whatever, but it was just was I a bruiser? No, I was a quick little bugger. Um, I went I used to play against Theron Fleury around that era kind of thing. Dean Kennedy, stuff like that. And going and playing, would I still be playing? I think so. The A whole bunch of issues come up, like with the draft. What happens with the draft is a lot of people aren't even aware what's the way the NHL draft works is they don't actually tell the player. They tell the parents, they tell the coach, they tell the adults kind of thing because they're talking about until you're like 18. So I was 15 when all this was going on. So the scouts are sitting in the stands watching you play, and then they go to your coach, and then they go to your parents and go, "Yeah, we think he's going to we're going to submit him for the draft." And you, my parents didn't tell me. My coach only told me after he said that you're never going to get drafted because I put in a negative complaint against you. Because what my coach was, he was one of these guys who wanted us to spy on our teammates and call him up if we ever saw our teammates doing shit outside of the rink that he didn't like. So he like, hey, coach, yeah, I saw this guy who's doing, and so he wanted us to do that. And I said, I'm not doing that. That's ridiculous. And so he thought I wasn't a team player. so he,
If
so,
anything, you're
so,
being a pro team player.
so he told the draft board that I was a shit disturber, and I wasn't. I didn't do what I was told. is what how he put it basically. And they went, yeah. Ended up I was a ninth round draft pick. There's quite a few rounds. If you can make it within 10, like the first 10, you're pretty much guaranteed to play with that team for a while. The number of people that are drafted just to be traded is ridiculous. And so when you find out, say, I got drafted by Chicago, but they were using me as bargaining chips to send me somewhere else, your life sort of goes up and down because you go to Chicago and then they're going to send you somewhere else and you don't know where they're going to send you. And you're like, holy crap, what's going to happen here? And so to answer your question, I think I would have played for a while because I wasn't really a bruiser and things were changing in the NHL then. Like we'd gone off of the 70s, like I loved Philadelphia, the city of brotherly shove. I loved that, man. And, the Flyers and I think, did I say Phillies earlier? Oh, I'm going to get in trouble for that one. Different sport. Um, but, so they were changing some of the rules and some of the boarding stuff and some of the uh, high sticking rules, and I think they were changing crease sizes then and all this stuff and all the craziness that goes on. But part of NHL is the fights, and part of the only time I was in two fights in my career, and the ones one time this guy was just being a clown, and all I did was I grabbed him by the front and I just threw him on the ground, and I just kind of kneeled on him, and that was my one fight because stick in the air and all this kind of stuff, and I think we were at that point. I think we were winning like 10-2, so the other team was getting very frustrated, and then the other time I fought, it was a full-on brawl where there was actually fighting in the stands as well. The parents were fighting. And at one point, us players it was right out of Slapshot, because I think there's a scene in Slapshot that's like that. The players, we stopped fighting, and then we just kind of stood back and we leaned on our sticks while we watched the parents go at each other. And it was like, this is ridiculous. And I think I was 15 then, I think 15, 16 then. So and you got moms whacking people with their purses and dads throwing coffee at the other, and they're trying to get at each other. And when you're playing, I guess so. There's not a lot of people in the stands. Well, actually, no, there were because there's probably like about 1,000 people in the stands watching us play, and you've got this small little group of parents going at each other, and then everyone else just kind of backed away. So you could see it. So there's this little like sort of knot of parents fighting each other. It was actually really embarrassing is what it was, because you kind of went, because now you got to go home with that. You kind of find out what was going on. And it was just, sometimes it happened. There's so many stories about, parents and their sports kids and how much pressure they're putting on their kids, and the parent, like
Did you think your dad put too much on you?
oh yeah, he did, but only when he was drinking. I think I would have been 14, and I don't know what the game, it was like a playoff game or something like that, but he came in the dressing room in between the first and second period, and he stank of like whiskey or something, and he just laced into me in front of my teammates, kind of thing. He's standing there, and I'm like, "What are you doing in the room?" Because he's not a coach. He wasn't an assistant coach, and the coach and the assistant coach, they did nothing. They just kind of stood back and went, like, "Well, it's his kid," and he chawed on me for like about 5 minutes, kind of thing, because the breaks in between not that long. It was just so embarrassing, and so I can't even remember if we won the game, but after the game was over, my dad's giving me a ride home, and I turned to him and I go, "If you ever do that, actually, what I said was, don't ever do that to me ever again in front of my teammates. You got something to say, pull me into the hallway. Don't do that." And also at the same time, I think back now, he's driving hammered. He's hammered, and he's
Yeah.
driving me home, kind of thing. And so when I had my accident, uh, you know, my dad, I'm laying in my bed. I've got a rod up, one side of my knee, and basically it was taped to the outside of my knee. It wasn't the inside of my
At
knee kind of thing.
15, you had this accident?
I had the accident actually closer to 17. So, well, 16, 17. Uh, it was over the summer between, so I think I just turned 17, I think, but I was drafted before the accident. And I was drafted that winter, and then that summer I got, so basically a couple months later, but I got at the end when the draft is happening, no one's playing kind of thing. And no one in sort of, no paperwork or anything had really been done, which is why the draft is sort of done over the summer, and then they make all the arrangements and where you're going to send them and all this stuff. So he comes into my bedroom and he looks at me and he goes, "You have ruined my dream." And then he turns around and walked out. And I went, "What? What is he talking about?" So because I guess he wanted to, actually, he wanted to be a football player. So it was really weird. But I don't, my dad and I had sort of a different relationship. All of us kids did really, but so yeah, he was a bit hard on me when I was playing kind of thing. But he was hard on my brother. He was hard on all of us because we had a sports store, so we were supposed like a family sports store, so we were supposed to be good at what we did. He's like, how embarrassing is that if I got kids who can't even, and it's like, oh man. But the thing was, we were pretty good. But we practiced, and oh, it was brutal. Nothing like getting up at 4 in the morning to do a hockey practice when.
Would you trade that in for any other activity, or was it just that one?
Would I trade that in? Yeah, I would have loved to play in a band.
I know that's what all the people want to do nowadays.
I was actually playing in a band after this. I started playing. I was playing keys in a really. We were bad. We were so bad. Uh, we could play a couple songs pretty good, but our drummer couldn't keep time, and our singer. The only reason she was our singer is because we could rehearse in her garage, her parents' garage, and we had a bass player who used to like to play his bass with a penis extension that he got off out of a comic book or something like that. Like that's what he used as a
The
pick,
fuck?
and then you're just like, oh, it was just so weird. It was just so weird. I think we were called Scepter. I think that was our and my dad actually pulled me. He said, "You get out of that band." And I said, I'm just goofing around, Dad. He goes, "No son of mine is going to get into that rock and roll bullshit." He goes, "You're the oldest son. I will write you out of the will." So I used to get all that. That was his big threat. I will write you out of the will.
What did he
So I,
have to leave you?
in the end, really nothing because our store went bankrupt, which is kind of funny. So I don't know. So I don't know what we went back because of like the big malls and the Wall Street or Walmarts and opening late and then opening 7 days a week. When you're a mom and pop shop, you can't keep those hours because you got to start hiring staff. And well, the whole point of a mom and pop shop is it's family run, so you can't do the staff. So we kind of saw that coming, but the like my dad when uh when I got the talk, the talk, I was like 17, and my dad's like, "Yeah, son, we have to have the talk." And I go, "Dad, I think I pretty much got it now. I'm a hockey player. I know these things now." And he goes, "No, I got to ask you something." I went, "All right." He went, "Son, are you gay?" And I went,
I
not
think
that
you
I'm
said
aware.
this on one of like your first
Yeah,
episodes.
and I said, "Not that I'm aware of, Dad. Why?" And he went, "Well, you don't have a girlfriend. You're 17, you don't have a girlfriend." And at the time, I wasn't, I was a, I was really focused on hockey. I was kind of a prick. Everything about what I was doing was hockey, 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 because, I'm going to the big show, all this stuff, I'm focused. Now, did I know I was going? No. See, this is the thing. I didn't actually know I was going, but I was trying really hard to get there. And so I said, "No, Dad, I don't have a girlfriend." And he said, again, he goes, "You're my eldest son." He goes, "No son of mine's going to be queer. If you don't get a girlfriend in 1 month, I'm writing you out of the will." And I'm like, it's just, you kind of go, this is how my dad worked. He was like,
Your dad's like
so
Red Foreman with the "I'll kick your ass" type thing.
and very much so. He was sort of like, "What are you doing? Stop doing that, or I'm writing you out of the will." And it's sort of like a meme now in a way because it was like, okay, like one of the things was he had this big thing about everybody having to be there for birthday photo. So if it was your birthday, there was going to be a cake, and you had to be there for the entire family had to be there for the photo. No matter, so we're in there like, mid to late teens, 16, 17, 18. And Dad's like, where are you? We're trying to take a picture of the cake. And I go, Dad, I'm with my girlfriend or whatever. And he's like, you get home right now because we got to take this photo. And you're like, and you light the you light the candle or whatever it was with he liked the cakes that see, this is the thing, it didn't matter what we wanted. All the cakes had the number of how old you were, so you knew whose birthday it was. And so when they're holding the cake, or so you're holding the cake, the number is lit, and then everybody would come in, we go cheese, and there's my mom, taking a picture. There's always a thumb in there somewhere, and and then we put the cake down, blow it out, and then everybody would bugger off. It was just but he had this thing in it. So if you didn't show up for the pictures, he'd write you out of the will. And so it was, it's amazing. My brother and I made it as far as we did. So.
I don't know. I mean, yours is kind of like a cool story about like hard work beats talent, or hard work beats what is it? Yeah, it's talent, right?
That's the thing. And what I didn't realize at the time, which I found out much later, and I'm not sure if I was grateful to find this out. But one of the guys said, hey, Bing. And I went, what? And he said, when we played hockey against you, we hated you. We absolutely hated you. I said, why? Because I thought the harder I worked, our team would do better, and I'd make new friends. And he was like, no, the harder you worked, the worse you made us look. Because this is a small town in Canada. Not all of us wanted to go play in the NHL. We just wanted to play a bit of hockey and go and get drunk after. But because the coach used to say behind my back, and I didn't know this, he'd go, you know, he go, look at Casper over there, he's trying it really hard. You guys look like shit, he's making all you guys look crazy. And I'm like, I didn't know that. So he used to point at me and go, he's working hard. Why aren't you guys working hard? And
Dude, I would have been like, hey, on if I don't try hard, my dad's gonna write me out of the will and then just skate off.
exactly. But so if I would have found out, like, nobody was like, hey, can you get us some smokes? Uh, the thing that people would do all the time, hey, can you get us some booze? That was the thing in my hometown. Like, there was no kids coming up to you asking to buy cigarettes. It was buying alcohol. So
I don't
that was
think
the
it's
fun.
I've never really came across anybody trying to ask if they can get me to go get them beer because I think everybody is inside playing Fortnite.
That's so many things have changed since, well, with COVID and all that kind of stuff. And then,
There's like 30-year-olds playing Fortnite. I'm like,
yeah,
don't you have a job?
yeah. Well, are you going to adhere to the TikTok
I don't
ban?
have a choice. I tried to sign into the app this morning and it says sorry, but the United States put a ban on this app so you cannot longer access it. And then the only other option to click through that is to hit close app. So I
Wow.
literally
So,
don't, there's not even, I didn't even know. I don't, here's the thing. I like doing TikTok just because I like making the clips,
yeah,
but that's the
yeah.
only thing I ever made it for. So I'm just going to have to find another clip making app. I don't really care that much about TikTok, but I have friends that have, think way back in like before I hit 1,000 episodes, there's a guy who's now a teacher, but his whole second career was doing TikTok. He had 100,000 followers. He cashed a check last month for 2,100 something dollars. Like he was
Yeah.
doing the TikTok game. And then
Yeah.
now it's like all these people are crying, oh my God, TikTok's gone. What's going to happen? What's going to happen? I was like, I don't know what you do with your life, but I can tell you what you did before TikTok. You were on another app. There's plenty of other apps.
You are, and the odd thing is, somebody they were seeing a podcast where they were talking about there's an app called Duolingo, which is a language learning app, and in the last month, the amount of Americans that are learning Mandarin has increased by 200%, because they're using an alternative to TikTok called Red Note.
Yeah, it's all Chinese or Mandarin, whatever.
Mandarin Chinese. And the thing about that is, uh, the the people who are on Red Note in China are like, what the fuck? Get out here, you American, get out. And so they're trying to boot out all the Americans who come on, because they're like, this is our app. What are you doing? TikTok is actually banned in China. itself, but they wanted it to be released in North America. Uh,
Because they've been gathering information on people.
well, when it's run by the guy who runs the CEO of TikTok, he's from Singapore, but um, when TikTok first started, it was actually an educational app, and that's what the Chinese used to use it for, was teaching stuff to kids, kind of thing. Whereas over here, they just doesn't collect everything collects data nowadays. Like, anytime that anything you have to sign in for, like what is TikTok collecting more of than any other app? Nothing, the amount of time you spend on it, but is it, the every time you use your credit card or your debit card, more information passes than you using TikTok.
Yeah, but
But
I
they've
think the issue is TikTok gets that information,
yep.
like stored credit cards and things that are on your phone. And
Oh, I
also,
suppose. Well,
I've noticed TikTok has, since using the app more, I've been getting spam calls, like really weird ones, and can't tell if it's real or if it's not. Like I've screenshotted them like six. It's literally once a week I get a random text. One woman texted me saying, "Hey, I was wondering when I can come do some of your coaching classes. I've been trying to get really back into working with equestrians again, and I would love to join your class or something." And I just text back. I go, "I think you have the wrong number." Lady didn't even read it. Just said, "Well, I've been living out in Virginia for so long, and I really want to ride equestrians again." And I know what equestrians are; they're horses. So I go, "Look, sorry, you have the wrong number. My name's Robbie. I'm not an equestrian coach, but do me a favor. Could you send me a picture of your horse, just because I'd like to see it?" And then she sends a message back saying, "Hi, Robin. It's nice to meet you. Yeah, I'm in my 40s and I'm just looking to ride horses again." And I just blocked the number and I sent it to my buddy. He was like, "Bro, I'm going to start changing your name to Robin." So now his contact for me is Robin. I'm like, damn it.
well, yeah, that's the thing. I mean, th- I fell into that trap once because somebody, they sent me. I get a lot of texts that just say, "Hey, hey,"
Just say, hey, back.
and no, the moment you start interacting with them, because a lot of times that initial "hey" is just AI, just sending something. But the moment you interact with them, basically the scammer is like, "Okay, got him." So you just, I will
What do you
occasionally.
mean, got them? What are they going to say to me?
Well, no, because they got him on the hook. Basically, this is the thing they want. Now they're going to try and see here. The first thing that woman said to you. I'm in my 40s and I like riding horses. That's basically she wants you to sign up to her OnlyFans.
Yeah, but I
Gonna-
blocked the number before she could even
Yeah,
get
exactly,
there.
right away. But that's it. He's like, okay, I'm in. So because the amount
No,
of
they're never
people,
in. They're never
no, well,
in. I
the
had
amount of
someone
people.
trying to tell me that Amazon's something scammed on my Amazon thing, and like it was, and it was like if you click the link, I could see it in the link. It said Amazon and then it said India, like had a slash India afterwards. And I just sent a message back. I was like, find someone who's not fucking 20 in their 20s and knows the bullshit, and then just sent the text.
That's the thing. But there's a lot of people though who will get caught by those, which is weird. Like,
Yeah, my great grandfather did a long time ago. My great grandfather was 97 at the time. And when we were at his funeral, my dad told me, he goes, "I really hope that when he got scammed, he didn't think it was me." And I was like, "What are you talking about?" So apparently, some guy had called my great grandfather acting as my dad and saying that he needed 6 grand because he needed bail money. And my great grandfather, not knowing, just sent 6 grand, and then they never heard anything back about that.
these days, because you can do it through text, like WhatsApp, you'll get a WhatsApp message from somebody, and the you immediately or Facebook, and you immediately panic, and you go, "Why? I just talked to this person yesterday. What do you mean they're in the hospital and they need money for this?" And so you might, they haven't realized their account's been hacked or something like that. So, and because they don't really use the phone, but yeah, I've been hit with that. Um, Somebody did it with my mom, which was the worst thing they could have done because my mom does not use social media, but she has an account. And they basically said something about, "Yeah, hey, I've been in an accident. I'm in the hospital. Can you give me some money?" And I go, my mom would not send a message like this at all, kind of thing. The first thing the message would have said was, "You need to come here now." not I need money. And particularly because the Canadian healthcare system doesn't work that way. So, uh, yeah, it is a bit tough. But so what do you think's going to happen? Here we go. So what
Well,
do you
hold
think's
on.
going to happen now that it's gone?
There's the one woman right now that was all over the news because she sent $850,000 to someone had scammed her, but they had AI'd Brad Pitt in the hospital, and apparently she's like a diehard fan, like an elderly woman, and she got scammed with
Oh,
$850,000.
wow. That's a lot.
If I
And
was Brad Pitt, I would pay all that money to her and be like, "I'm sorry this happened to you."
or give her some. I imagine, see, again, but I don't know how much Brad Pitt's making these days.
He's a fucking famous billionaire and he's hot. What else does he need?
Oh,
You
he's
get one of those. You
okay.
get one of those.
He's okay.
Like God makes you good at hockey and then takes away your ability to play hockey. That's how life works out.
Kind of, yeah, kind of. That was well, and yeah, that's so you find something else to do, kind of thing. But it's have you have you found any of your friends who are like traumatized because TikTok is not going, or
I know a few people that kept coming up to me. Oh my God, what do you think about TikTok being banned? What do you think about? I'm like, dude, I don't. Sorry, that's a whole nother world for me. I was like, I just introduced my buddy Casper to it a month ago, and now things getting fucking banned.
well, the thing I'm just wondering how long it's going to last,
But they say 90 days.
or in that time will another app appear? Uh,
If Trump bought it and then called it Trump Talk, I would die laughing.
well, you heard that Elon Musk was
Yeah,
trying to buy it, and then so was Zuckerberg, uh, and then so was Mr. Beast. With there was like a cabal of millionaires who got together and they were going to buy.
I don't know. Zuckerberg just did a Joe Rogan podcast, and he said some stuff, and he's getting a lot of heat right now.
What do you think of that podcast? I looked at that and I went, you have 180'd so hard and so fast. I think your neck hurts. You need a brace, young man.
Well, Joe Rogan like stopped him a couple of times because he was saying things that was like, no, 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 you definitely were a part of this, and he was like, kind of, but we were being forced by the
Or when they
Biden
were blaming it, when he
administration.
was blaming on everything on Biden. The weird thing for me was is when he started talking about all that karate shit and hanging out with his friends, and the joy you get out of violence, and when he was the aggression, the male aggression's got to come back.
Because
And
he wouldn't be on Joe Rogan's podcast unless he didn't own Facebook. You know what I mean? Like, it's the thing is like he's only there for that thing that he owns, and it was some good information. But like, it would be me inviting you on, and then we not really having a good vibe, but we just decided to talk about something that both of us don't even relate to. It's like it
yeah,
makes it difficult.
he kind of, the impression I got was he was saying stuff for Joe Rogan, and he didn't. When somebody has planned something, they're like, I'm going to talk about, I'm going to talk about things he likes. And then the moment you start talking about it, you know that the other person just really isn't sincere. They brought up a topic that they think the other person would like, but then they're like, yeah, I like, like look at him, like Mark Zuckerberg, or, he's talking about, the bringing the male aggression back. That's what's been missing from the country. And you're like, look at your hair, dude. Like, just no. Like there's just nothing about you that screams male aggression at all. And I kind of went, yay. But so he bandwagoned so hard and so fast when Trump's coming in, and there's going to be a really interesting pendulum swing that's going to happen with, like, it's already started. And what happens when you have like the DEI crowd who've been in power for the ones who said, shoplifting isn't a crime and all that, who, when the pendulum swings so hard, you double down. You're like, I'm not, it's sort of like, like my cat was misbehaving and I picked her up I go, stop that. And her claws just went in and she was like, no, I'm not going anywhere. And I'm like, no, come in. And she's like, and that's sort of what's happened. Like, they've got their claws dug and they're like, we're not going anywhere. We're in a position of power here. We're not getting rid of this. Get out of here. And so I still think that there's going to be about 3 or 4 months of really crap movies. They're going to, they're going to absolutely destroy Marvel, and they're going to find a way to, like, make a female or something. They're going to gender swap everybody, and they've already killed Star Wars, which is too bad because Skeleton Crew was actually pretty good. It was actually pretty good, but after the Acolyte, nobody wanted to. They just didn't want to bother, and which is really sad because you saw what they were doing. The Skeleton Crew is basically Star Wars Goonies, really. So it was kind of good, and just nobody. They're like, yeah, I'm done. I don't want to do this anymore. Kind of thing. Well, it's going to be really interesting to see what happens, even in the gaming industry. Ubisoft's coming out with their big, Assassin's Creed. Assassin's Creed's such a huge.
I love it.
I love Assassin's Creed.
I own
I
them
am
all.
not. Except I didn't do the Viking one because for me, that wasn't
That was
Assassin's
fun.
Creed.
That was like my favorite.
Yeah, I didn't. My last one I did was, I actually did the one with the brother and the sister.
Oh, the
I really,
Syndicate one?
yeah, Assassin's Creed Syndicate. I enjoyed that. I really enjoyed it.
I played, that's the only one I don't have 100% because I played 3 missions. I was like, I don't like this. I can't connect to the character if you keep switching me around.
Oh yeah, well, eventually you don't have to switch around. You can pick one and then the other. But I think I really enjoyed Odyssey, but Odyssey got really big. Like you hit that point. It's sort of like when you're playing Final Fantasy. There's a point in every Final Fantasy game where the world just goes, do whatever you want. Build up until the end of the game,
I
and
like
when you
that.
take on the final boss, which is great. But at that point, you're like, so, and it says that the ticker says you are 78% done or whatever, and you're like, that's awesome. But then the game goes, wow, and you go, I am not 78% done. I'm now, you know, they've just added another 138%, and you're like, oh God.
I didn't like it when they started putting up paywalls where like you have to buy the DLC to get the 100%. I was like, I'm not gonna keep doing that.
Anything that's there because there are people out there who really they just want 100% it. And if you can't 100% something for free, um, a game that you bought, like it's different if it's a free to play game and there's something behind a paywall. But if you bought the game, you should be able to
Yeah.
100% it. But I don't like the 100%. I don't like those ones where the 100% relies on a decision you make in the game, so that the only way to 100% it is to play it again.
Oh,
I'm never a big fan of that. I'm like, no, I want to be able to 100% it the
no.
first time I play it.
When I had the 100% Odyssey, I was sailing in the middle of the ocean with nothing around looking for feathers. You know how difficult that was?
Yes, and that was the thing. It's so funny that you're talking about that because I hit that point too, and I was just like, and you also hit that point. When I hit that point, my ship was so powerful. I would just see a ship on the horizon, just go boom, and or there'd be like a fight would start, and I'm like, hey, and there was nothing to it anymore. And then you, I memed out my Cassandra where I can't even remember what I was doing, but I could just look at the enemy and they would start on fire, and it would just, it didn't matter what I was doing, but there was just so much places to go. But I think even in that one, to 100% that game, there was something right in the beginning of the game that had to do with that island that was poisoned. And to 100% it to get the trophy for that, you had to make a different choice about that island, which meant you had to play it again. You had to play the game again to order to get something, I think. But that was I think that was the last real Assassin's, because I enjoyed um what was Assassin's Creed Origins, the
The
one where you were,
pyramid one?
yeah,
I thought
that was kind of cool.
everyone hates that one.
It was kind of cool, but they hated it because it was the first game to change the fighting mechanic.
Yeah.
And people went, well, I'm used to Assassin's Creed. I know what it does. So here, here you've come along with, oops, uh, here you've come along with Assassin's Creed Shadows, which is gonna be, oh, it's gonna be a nightmare. It's just, which is so sad.
The reason why I like the Viking one was that it finally gives you the option. I know it's not an assassin tactic, but you just want to fight. I'm just tired of sneaking around everywhere. I just want to go up and just start
That's
attacking.
true. That's really true. There is a point where just like they introduced that in Syndicate, where because they had the fighting ring, the fight ring, where that's all you had to do. It was part of how you got certain weapons in the game or something like that. But they had basically a fight club that you joined, and it was fists. There was no weapons kind of thing. So
They've
that
had that in all of them.
I think they have. This one was, I think, one of the first ones to make it sort of a like you could fight. You go to places and fight, but this was like an actual club where you went in, where you would get like 5-on-1 or something, and they would work it out. But I think all the other ones you went from town to town and talked to the fight guy and then fight. That's true. They have, yeah, because you. I remember. I think I remember the first Assassin's Creed game I was playing. Even that, like when you talk about feathers, I remember falling off of buildings and things. You know, where you see a feather on the top of a church, and you're like, I get it, and you spend like 4 days, for collecting like 20 feathers or something. And you're like, what is it with feathers? Like, oh man. Yeah. But Assassin's Creed Shadows has, there's something going on with that game where you'd think they're purposely trying to sabotage it because, well, they changed the protagonist from, because it's set in Japan, everybody was like, finally, we get a Japanese, like assassin. This will be awesome. And then they make him a big black guy, and you're like, why would you do that? And then, so basically, they show clips of this big black man going through these little Japanese villages with a club, cracking peasants over the head, and you're like, yeah, this is going to go over really well. This is not going to go over well. And then you're watching the show or you're watching the trailer, and if you talk, I've watched like Japanese people going through this, and they go, "See that building? Chinese. See that building? That's Chinese. See that building? Chinese." And you're like, "See this? They're harvesting rice. See this? Cherry blossoms. 6 months apart." They go, this wouldn't happen. See that? That's a Torii gate. You know where that goes? Temple. And they'll have like a long path lined with like these Torii gates. And they go, this has nothing to do with Japan. Because usually if Ubisoft had said, this is just a game, awesome. Let's play our game. It's our imagination of the game. Ubisoft's problem was they said it's historically accurate. The same way that they did with Cleopatra for Netflix. They said it's historically accurate. And the moment you do that, the weebs are going to come out of the net, and they're going to go, okay, they see it's historically accurate. Let's see if we can find the problems. There were so many that now the worst thing they did was they came out with these little figurines, these little dolls, and they were going to sell them through like, I don't know, Namco or something like this, Namco Bandai, and they they posed them on this broken Torii gate. There's only one in Japan, and it is the symbol. It's a shrine that's made to the Nagasaki bombing. Broken Torii gate.
See, that's a video game they should have made. When like you're trying to escape the bombings and
Something, well, but so here they've gone and desecrated this holy shrine. So they did everything in their power to shoot themselves in the foot, and then they delayed the game until February, Valentine's Day, February, and they don't realize what was coming out. Uh, Kingdom Come Deliverance, I think, is coming out that day. That's a whole other thing. And then they decided to delay it until I believe it was March the 28th or something like that, March the 20th. Problem is, it's the anniversary of the worst terrorist attack in Japan. It was the sarin gas bombing in the or sarin
damn.
gas attack in their subway systems. That's the day they want to release their game. And somebody said to them, did none of you look at a calendar? Did nobody, like, you do not release a video game on this day?
Unless you can market it really well.
Well, yeah, exactly. But the problem is your game has nothing about terrorists, or it's not. I imagine like a Call of Duty game might have, depending on how you spun it, might work because fighting the terrorists or something. There's no terrorists in this game, so it's. I find that these days it's almost like people they've left their brain at the door. They're doing stuff that's just like, what? Why?
Because they're trying to feel relevant again.
Yeah. And
It's
then
been a
you've got
while.
the one guy, there's a game out called Avowed, which is coming out, which looks pretty good, actually. It looks really good. But then you have I believe it's the art director, has he posted something about how the game has pronouns in it. And Elon Musk posted something that said, any RPG that has, pronouns don't belong in RPGs. That's ridiculous. And so this avowed art director comes back. I waited for the day that I would piss off Elon Musk. Oh, if you're upset about this, wait until you see what we've done for the default setting. And you kind of go, that's not the response that you're supposed to do if you want to sell your game. And so this is blowing into this whole thing. Chances are that Avowed might die before it's even bought because this art director just went full on woke, pronoun this, that, and nobody wants to play that. And people are like, what? Why would you do that? Why would you sabotage your own game? Cost like Dragon Age: The Veilguard, which I'm a huge Dragon Age fan, love Dragon Age. Dragon Age: The Veilguard bombed, absolutely bombed. It died. The Not as bad as Concord, where they spent $400 million on it, but it didn't do well at all, which is sad for the franchise. Particularly, I'm waiting for Mass Effect. I'm waiting for Mass Effect to come out because I'm a huge Mass Effect fan as well. But BioWare, that looks like the designer of or the lead on Veilguard has just left BioWare, and there's a chance that BioWare Edmonton might shut down. BioWare Edmonton is like sort of one of the OG studios out there, So BioWare's shutting down, Ubisoft shutting down. There's a chance and there's a very good chance that they're going to be bought by Tencent. And Tencent is a Chinese gaming company that already owns a bunch of stuff. But so you wonder that, but actually Tencent has actually been labeled by the U.S. government as a military organization.
I'm not surprised. I feel like most of the things that video games are connected to somehow have to do something with our military.
Oh, I wouldn't be surprised at all if all Chinese exports are somehow tied to.
Call of Duty gets funded however much money during their research and development processes because it happens to do with American patriotism a lot of the times.
Also, anything that has to do with American arms and any movie, anything that has.
I think you learned that on my show then.
Yeah, when we're talking about that.
That's Matt Alford's work, his documentary Theaters of War.
Yeah, when he was talking about that. But one of the things we didn't talk about is that also filters into not
video
just
games.
Movies, into video games. So because the Call of Duty stuff is realistic, like that stuff that they're using is stuff that the military has access to. I imagine the military is stuff that doesn't. And also, I imagine video game might take a leeway here. But
I mean, they still fly drones with the fucking flight simulator joystick.
So because we all know it's all Star Trek now. Boop, 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 so that's how they would do it now.
Well, half the times, like a drone strike happens, it's a guy sitting in a warehouse like 1,000 miles away from where the plane's flying at.
Yeah. And that's although, is he sitting there with a...
No, he's probably in one of those arcade NASCAR things, the ones that shape like a NASCAR seat.
Do you remember there was one game that came out? It was a starship, pilot ship, and I think it cost like $2 when it first came out. This would have been like in the 80s. That was really expensive. But you used to climb inside the cockpit, and it used to rotate.
They do that at the National Air and Space Museum. They have a machine that lets you fly, like if you're flying an airplane or something, it'll rotate all the way around. It's a full gyro.
And is it on like a thing where it'll pick you up, sort of where you're like move you around? Yeah, so you get sort of G-forces and stuff?
Yeah, you can be upside down for a really long time because I remember my grandma went with me and she was screaming the whole time because I held this upside down for like a good 20 minutes straight.
Of course she would. That's because it's your grandma. You go,
well, why would you let me drive?
Exactly. It's like, this is your fault. You let me drive.
And that's one thing I will say is like looking back, like I said, the whole contemplating your own existence type thing. The amount of trips my grandma went on, like if we had to do a field trip and I needed a chaperone and my grandma just signed up for it. And she's like already had a bad knee at the time. And we're walking all around Washington, D.C. because I want to go see Abraham Lincoln's statue and see the memorial and do all this type of
Exactly.
stuff.
See, it's really cool. I mean, it sort of ties into, and I think I mentioned this. Somebody came out to my sister just after my brother passed and said, "Yeah, heard about your brother. Yeah, I thought 2025 was going to be a good year." And she looked at him and went, "It's going to be a great year. One event does not end all things happening." And so basically, with your grandma, she's decided that, you know, she might be older. She might be, it's sort of like when I wake up now, my aches and pains sort of just remind me I'm alive rather than I don't wake up and go, I'm getting old. I go, up, made it another day.
Yeah,
And
but I'm not old, and if like my kid came up to me, hey, do you mind chaperoning a trip to Washington D.C.? I really want to go. I'm like, fuck that. Let's just go sit on the
exactly. So
couch
no,
and
well,
order
so
some
what she
movies.
did, so she chose a different path. She just chose to spend time with her grandkids. And yeah, she might be a bit of pain when she gets home or something after all the walk, but the memories she still has and she's still going. And this would have been, I imagine this would have been the time when, there's not a lot of selfies going on and stuff. People are taking,
This was like
taking
15 years ago.
yeah, taking, you're taking pictures and photos. And so maybe she's someone, well, I just want to experience these things in person kind of thing. So that's really cool. I think and some of it, you look back that now, and I remember you probably thought 15 years ago, bummer, going out with my grandma because she doesn't want to do half the stuff I want to do. But now when you look back and you go, she was actually really cool. The fact that she would do that stuff, that's crazy. But
I want to ask you because I didn't ask it when you were talking about it, but do you think there's talent in voice acting, or do you think a lot of it has to do just with how you get kind of
oh,
gifted?
you know what? That's a very good question. And it's the same thing that people will talk about even with hockey or football, or there are talented people and then there's luck. And I knew lots of talented people who didn't get the opportunity to either play or because they didn't get the right coach or stuff. The thing about the people miss with voice, like they call it voice acting, and there's a reason they call it voice acting. The first thing you should probably do before you even get in front of the microphone is take acting classes to see if you could do it, because there's a bit of goof. Now somebody would go like, well, do I need acting classes to do like trailers for movies and stuff? And he said, oh, you betcha, because you need to go through all those things. Now, how many people have come up to someone and said, "Hey, you've got a great voice. You should be doing radio. You've got a great voice." That used to happen to me all the time, which I thought was really weird when they did. But even when I started voiceover work, I still had to do classes. I still had to figure out how to do this stuff. So I think there are talented people who can do it, who just have nice voices. But for example, the amount of like AAA stars, like big movie stars who are asked to do voiceover work and they're shite because they don't know how to use a microphone is ridiculous. The amount of times like I've sat down with engineers at the place I do most of my stuff at in London, and they go, "Yeah, we just had this big actor in, and it was like pulling teeth. It was horrible. It was absolutely horrible." And now, but this is someone who's like an Oscar award winning actor, Academy Award winner, who can't do voiceover work because they can't translate that, where the camera is. So there's people who are really good at acting, but they can't do it. And then there's people who just have a nice voice and they can do the stuff kind of thing. I think it's a lot of it is patience. It's sort of like what's happened last year with AI, where a lot of people I knew there's one girl in our agency who was like one of the biggest money makers in the agency, who went from making a crap ton of money to no money because AI took all of her jobs. Because she mainly does corporate stuff, which is when people mention corporate, they go, well, what does that mean? What is corporate? Corporate jobs are like the bread and butter for voiceover people. And that's like factory tours, doing doing like phone lines, like when you're on hold for somebody, that's corporate. Corporate, the amount of like award ceremonies and in-house little videos that you're doing, particularly the big companies, they all do them. they'll all do because all the big companies have like little get-togethers for their team members, and so you'll do like a 2-minute presentation, and that's what a lot of it's not glamorous, but that's what you do, and you got to train for that stuff. And then she now works in a church as a secretary. She went from making zit to zit. I think if she hangs in there, she'll get her job back, but she's going to have a tough couple of years, kind of thing. Because I think what's going to happen is people, just like we've talked about, when you hear AI doing something, it sucks. It just actually sucks. Yeah. Um,
Do you prefer that when it's something like you mentioned historical accuracy when it comes to video games, but do you think that people prefer more historical accuracy? Because I find a lot of people tend not to know. But
that's
I
a good question. Yeah,
yeah,
I think do they prefer it?
like I prefer doing like the JFK and the RFK clips and then the Jack the Ripper clips because it helps me learn, but also I can sense where their lies are too.
Yeah, I think that's a good question because I think it would depend on what you're playing. I think there are people like if you're playing like a Civ game, something like that, you want historical accuracy. Like one of the things they've tried to change in Civ, for example, is you can move leaders around, so you can make like Gandhi a warmonger if you want. And some people were like, I don't want that. I want Gandhi that you shouldn't be able to do that with with Gandhi. Like you shouldn't be able to make him like the leader of Germany or something. And I think I actually think that it's not that big a deal unless you make a big deal out of it. Like if you start touting yourself historically accurate. See what ends up happening with games like any particular game like the Wolfenstein series, any of those stuff, whenever you're going to get into like, you know, the Nazis or, you know, when are when you're there's a certain we've gone through a shift where you can't even say certain words and do certain things anymore because you don't want to offend everybody. And so sometimes being historically accurate is actually a detriment because some of the things they did back then weren't very nice. And so they've had to change some things. Or when they'll try and one of the things these days, in fact, I'd say over the last 6 to 8 years, games have really been less historically accurate because they're trying to bring in diversity uh, in places where there would not have been diversity. And just because the designers want it that way. So they're trying to change, they're trying to rewrite history. Uh, so basically, they're saying, well, this is how it should have been. This is what we think. And you go, well, that's not very accurate, is it? And they're like, yeah, but well, let's make it this. What do they call it? Retconning. So which is where you take something and you totally change it. The big, the big retcon these days is, are you a Warhammer fan at all?
no.
they've, they've introduced something called a female custodes, which in the Warhammer universe would never, ever, ever exist. But the the people who Games Workshop, who basically own the rights to Warhammer 40K, they were pressured into adding in a female custodes, and they've retconned it so that it's always been there. Basically, they've said, "Oh yeah, it's always been there," and we'll just write it in this book here. So it's sort of they have a lot of those issues with Star Wars, where they'll go, "Is that canon?" Or not Star Wars, Star Trek, is that canon? Oh, well, no, Star Wars as well. Like they'll say, did that really happen? It's that thing that happened in the Clone Wars. Are you tying that to this? And did that happen? It's like, guys, you're spending a lot of time on a fantasy thing that doesn't matter that much, but for some people it does. And so being historically accurate, I think can be fun. I prefer things to be as accurate as they can, just for uh, I'll go. So when I'm playing something, I'll go, "Wow, I have no idea. This is really cool. Look at
Even
this."
when that accuracy is doesn't have an answer.
What do you mean? What do you mean? Like,
Well, how many JFK and RFK clips have you done for me by now? We've done well
oh,
over a
right.
thousand.
I think those are the cool thing about those is the the historical accuracy about that is its ambiguity, because those things like JFK and RFK in particular, it seems so obvious. like from my point of view, looking back now, and just the amount of things that I've read, it just seems so obvious what happened. But you still can't make that jump. You can't make that leap because there's that, even if there's just a 3% chance it might be something else. And it happened during a time. And this is the other thing about when you talk about historical accuracy, the cool thing about historical accuracy is how inaccurate it is, how inaccurate history is. Like, if you remember, there was a time called the Dark Ages where it was like humanity disappeared. Nobody was writing anything. Nobody was doing anything. There was a lot of wars going on. But the Dark Ages, nobody really know what happened during the Dark Ages. So I look at the JFK and the RFK stuff and I go, how can something happen like literally 50 years ago? It doesn't seem that long ago and still be so in the air where I look at that and I go, well, it's kind of obvious, isn't it, what happened? But even if it's kind of obvious, there's no proof.
Yeah. Wait, do you believe conspiracy in the JFK case? I didn't think you did.
Do I believe conspiracy? Well, it depends what. Yeah, I do. Yeah, I've never believed in the lone gunman.
What about the RFK one?
Oh yeah.
That's the only one I don't understand. I use Chat GPT to help me out sometimes when I'm running a summary, just so it's in a more professional format when you read it. And that's why some of it might look like there's typos in it. So just because Chat GPT is doing some of it, and sometimes I don't get the time to check it. But with the RFK one, like I'll ask the question when I'm doing a JFK clip, I'll say, who was this person? And it will tell me this person, this, but then that'll lead into conspiracy theories and this and this and this. But then if I do about the RFK one, they're like, no, lots of people believe that it wasn't Sirhan acted alone and that there was multiple shooters and there's this witness and this is what they described. And I'm like, and I've asked like polls of people that are like not JFK conspiracy people at all. But then you talk about the RFK one, everyone's like, oh yeah, that was totally like something else going on there. I go, why is that one your go-to as like there's something more going on there? And it just never made sense. And there's stuff where I'm trying
that's
to
that is weird. Like,
let me there's for research purposes there's a guy's name who I have the summary already done for, but he says something in an interview that matches nothing of what was said out of all the witnesses in the
oh yeah, I
pantry.
remember. No, I
Well, I
remember that
haven't I
we.
haven't sent them to you yet.
Oh no, because you. I think you mentioned something there. You do mention something about there was one guy. He's mentioned in another thing where you talk about this one witness who says one thing, and then when he gives a deposition, it's totally different to what he told.
That's probably something different, but this guy at the ending, and he said it in an interview to MSNBC or some news station that interviewed him like 5 years ago, and he was like, "I was there. I know what happened. I was a bodyguard for Robert Kennedy." And then they're like, "Well, RFK Jr. thinks that his dad was killed by the security guard that was standing behind him," and he goes, "I put my jacket over RFK Jr. and I walked him out of it. And I didn't even think RFK Jr. was at the Ambassador Hotel. I guess he must have been at the hospital with Ethel or something." But he was like, what Bobby was doing was he was walking from this room to that room and he was going to meet Frank Sinatra out back and they were going to a private party. Nobody has ever stated or came close to saying that Frank Sinatra was anywhere near the Ambassador Hotel. And I've never heard that anywhere else. And I've looked in the comments and everyone's like, this guy's a fucking liar. This guy's this. And I'm like, the issue is I can't send you that clip until I know for a fact that Sinatra was anywhere near, because that would change everything. I even asked Craig, and Craig's the one with the giant map of all the witnesses there.
You know, the weirdest thing that you've sent me so far, or the thing that has stuck out the most to me from the RFK stuff that I've recorded, is that one guy, I think he's a bellboy or a busman, who talks about the only thing that he noticed was when the people were struggling on the ground, the only thing I noticed was one of them had this really weird pair of shoes. It's just a comment he makes. One of them had a pair of shoes that
was
were
it Juan
strange.
Perez?
I think it was Juan Perez. You might look at, but all he mentions is when they were on the ground and I looked, the only thing that I noticed was that one of the men was wearing a very strange pair of shoes. That's what he says. And it's not picked up again anywhere else. Like, what made the shoes strange? Why would you say that? Like, was he maybe wearing running shoes and everyone else was wearing like Like so that's all he says. He was wearing a strange pair of shoes. And I read that and I went, Robbie, you bugger, because that's gonna that's gonna bother me forever.
I don't know
Because
why
I
they say
because
these things, but
well, but it's how like when a witness says something and you kind of go and no one follows up on it, you kind of go, what? Why did that? And that's for the amount of times that happened in both cases. Now, the amount of see with
the RF cases is a little bit more when it comes to police stuff. But
yeah, there's stuff like the amount of witnesses that said they saw other people, or the amount of people where they talk about the woman in the polka dot dress and things, and you kind of go, where did like that is such an odd comment. Like it's not just a woman; it's a woman in a
the tape of Hank Hernandez, the LAPD officer interrogating Sandy Serrano, and in the interrogation, he's like, "You didn't see that. You didn't see that. Why are you lying? You're insulting Kennedy's family." You have this guy interrogating a woman who's a witness telling him what she
oh right,
saw.
where and is that the guy who gets in trouble for heavy-handedness in his
Yeah, that's
like they
yeah.
yeah they talk about that and yeah again so you go why like no you didn't see that you didn't see that and for the amount of people that like with JFK the amount of people who were like afraid for their life if they saw something that that's mentioned a couple times and so do I thought for example I just my amateur view is I believe that the CIA colluded with LBJ and they just did a really botched job but because it was the 60s there's no way to prove what was going on and they could just curtail all the information all they had to do is I'll take that tape thank you very much I'll just think I will and then the FBI just doesn't release it or they lose it or they do whatever and it was so obviously botched like from the amount of stuff that went on but what happened exactly I couldn't tell you, but did something? Yeah, there was definitely collusion going on. With the RFK one, that's a bit different because it was such a like you wonder like my big thing about that was like Lee Harvey Oswald has so much backstory. So much like all his, stuff in it's Russia and and his free Castro stuff. Sirhan just boom, he just who's that? Like where did he come from? Why would he does he have a reason? Like, like the everyone who's taken a shot at a president or even John Lennon or whatever, they have a reason for why they did it. I've never read a reason why Sirhan did it. Now maybe I just missed it kind of thing.
I just sent you a picture I want you to look at real quick, and you'll realize why JFK is trending right now
where did you send
on
it
your
on?
Instagram.
Okay. Uh
You might need your cell phone for that.
no, unless it doesn't pop up here, but speaking of my cell phone's about to die. Sorry. We'll have to- oh, okay.
Luigi, the health guy who shot the healthcare guy, and then Lee Harvey Oswald. If you colorize the photo of Oswald, the cardigan's red. But look at the hand placement on both of them when they have their hands in front of them.
Yeah,
Exactly the same way you're holding your hands. Exactly
yeah,
the same cardigan.
yeah.
So a lot of people are bringing up like, "Hey, Luigi's innocent. He said he was innocent." And I go, "Hang on a second. If you remember, and this is my theory, I can't prove any of this, but when Trump got shot and they killed that kid, they said they found on his computer how far was Lee Harvey Oswald from JFK, which, to be honest, anyone his age doesn't know who Lee Harvey Oswald is. There's no way. I'll bet anything on that. But with Luigi, if he says not guilty, then it comes out to prove that he was guilty and he does end up admitting it, then people will just assume and kind of get it in their heads that Lee Harvey Oswald must have been guilty too. So when he's claimed he was a patsy, it would have came out in court that he was guilty, which isn't true because all this stuff started happening when JFK started trending really hard. So I don't know.
There were so many weird things going on then, like the the Kennedys themselves were a force of their own. Like there was so much going on in the background with and their ties with Sinatra and their ties and even that and all the little things that were sneaking in and the stuff that RFK did with that's tied into what was happening with JFK, like the whole Hoffa stuff and all and there's just so much stuff going on. Uh how could there not have been something like that's the thing. I guess you could get end up tied into that. Well, there's there's a pot and there's stuff in there and you've got all the spices. Of course it's a soup. Of course that's what it is. But you might actually be doing laundry or something and somebody is not actually looking in the thing. But you can make so many assumptions about that. But going back and like all the recordings I've done, yeah, I could make a couple leaps. But I've always believed there's been a conspiracy. Um, I believe, particularly with the JFK one, it was just so botched that they don't want to talk about it because it was. And when they talk about, like it was basic, and it. I also believe that it wasn't the entire CIA. It was like two guys, three guys were in a room talking and got together and they said, "Yeah, let's do this thing." And they might have been in the CIA, but it had nothing to do with the CIA kind of thing. Um, the the Secret
Well,
Service, I can't
the
remember
head of the CIA was probably more likely involved. Alan Dulles was in charge of the Warren Commission. He was fired by Kennedy.
how many times have we sort of experienced where the head of an organization is involved in something and the organization knows nothing about what he's doing?
True, but you have to put the organization at fault as well too, because J. Edgar Hoover was terrorizing black people and ruining so many people's lives, and the FBI just went with it because they were scared of Hoover. So it's like the Nazis. Not every Nazi wanted to kill people, but if you didn't do it, they were going to kill you and your family. So you kind of have to be like, sorry, you still
And
attempted
and
to
the
do
weird
it.
part with that is the pictures of like Hoover in a dress and all that kind of stuff. And you're like,
I hope that Clyde Tolson thing's real. That makes me so much happier if I find out that he was just a closeted person.
oh, I see. I've always believed that anyway, but
It
it's
came
because
from Jack Anderson in an interview.
because the ones who fight the use back, particularly back then, the ones who fought most against that were probably.
It's like that today too. There was that senator who refused to go to his gay son's wedding, but he was proposing a bill to ban gay people from ever getting married. I'm like, dude, come on, man. Like, it's obviously in your genes somewhere. You probably got a little freak in you.
Well, then have you seen one of my favorite pictures I see is there's this gay rally and there's a guy standing there, ban gays, ban gay marriage. And right beside him is obviously a very gay man standing with a sign that says, "He's at every one of our rallies." And there's an arrow pointing to him. So, which is very true. When you think about it, you kind of go, how come you go to all the gay rallies? Are you gay? No, no, I'm against them. Sure you are, man. Okay. Yeah.
I like girly drinks.
Yeah, I like girly drinks, except I keep getting the umbrella stuck in the roof of my mouth.
I made my buddy leave the bar one night because I went there and I ordered pina colada, but I made sure they put like an umbrella thing in it. And I was standing beside him. I was like, I don't know why, as dudes, we can't just order girly drinks. He goes, what? And he looks over and I go, and I'm just like drinking and like making this giggling noise. And he's like, all right, we're gone. I was like, damn it. I was having
Which
fun.
is so weird because I mean, if you go to Cuba or if you go to, Bali or something like that, of course you're gonna order a girly drink and you ask for two umbrellas. It's just so weird. But I guess you don't really do that in Maryland. So
Well, I'm sitting there drinking a natural light and it tastes like ass. And I'm like, well, I could be having a frozen drink right now.
yeah, natural lights are like there's something about while the standard joke about American beer is always, it's like having sex in a canoe, fucking close to water. So, so
That's a good one. I never heard that.
but particularly over here, they can make you laugh because when they talk about percentages of alcohol and stuff, jeepers creepers, you got stuff over here that'll you can just smell it. Go, hey, I'm gonna have a pint of, and you're out because it's just like there's, particularly if you get into like, if somebody's, you get into like a Guinness or a stout or something. Could you cut me another slice of Guinness, please? Thank you very much. This is lovely, and but
So
it's so
the
good.
the new plan is going to be to start putting these into a documentary format. Like I wanted to do years ago when I did all those recordings with the researchers, except I'll probably have somewhat a little bit of researchers, not the whole thing relying on it, and turn it into an episode series where we go into things like the Secret Service, we go into all this and we just touch on everything that is well known rather than things that are, because I'm doing a guest appearance on my buddy Stu's show because he's from the UK and he's like, we don't care about JFK over here, but I'd love to hear your thoughts on it. And I'm just like, I just want to tell you the factual information, go into witnesses, go into things that should have been investigated, and going into
I
Dallas
think that's a
police.
cool thing. I mean, and let people make their own, when you get into conspiracy stuff, some conspiracy stuff is basically he said, she said. But when you get into like what you do, like where you just do the facts, you make your own choice, have a conversation about it, see what you decide. That's an awesome way to do it.
Well, I
Yeah.
just started getting pissed off. Like I had that one guy on who wrote a book for about JFK, put it on Amazon, and he's sitting there telling me that Lee Harvey Oswald wanted to kill JFK for the fame, and I was like, dude, he screamed, "I'm a patsy" like 7 times on camera. They're like, he was doing it for attention. I was like, look at the police reports when they arrested him. He was screaming it in the cop car on the way to the police station. There's 3 police officers in that cop car. What attention is he getting from that?
And the thing about what, hopefully the what doesn't lose it, like back then, like a patsy, like in the 60s, if you said you were a patsy, that was a big deal. That was sort of like if somebody came up to you and said, "Do you want a knuckle sandwich?" That was you were about to get thumped. It was just the phrases, the things that they used then. And so Oswald saying, "I'm a patsy," that's huge. And the fact that he's yelling that out to the press, that he got that out because normally they wouldn't want to. I bet he got thumped a couple times.
I'm sure he
For
got thumped because a lot of people were assuming he was the JFK guy, but really the cops were like, we're only charging him on killing a cop right now, so we can't do the whole JFK
yeah,
thing.
that was the one thing. Did he kill the cop? Do you think?
I don't think so. It could be like I said, either with him taking a shot from the TSBD or him taking a shot on Patton Street. I don't see both,
See,
and
the
it's
the
weird
most
for me.
interesting thing that you've introduced me to, which I had no idea about, was this doppelganger.
In the theater,
Well, and at the rifle range.
oh, there was multiple sightings. It had to be more than just a doppelganger. It's doppelgangers.
Well, yeah. So people, and again, this is during a time when this is like when you get a police lineup where they all kind of look the same, so all you need is a bunch of guys who are average height, same hair color, same build.
They didn't even do that, though. That's the crazy thing. The first lineup, we already did clips on it. 3 of them were police officers dressed in suits, and Oswald was in a
Well, no,
white
yeah,
shirt.
I'm not, but I'm not even saying that yeah, but I get you with that. But I mean, with these guys who are pretending to be Lee Harvey Oswald, because there's no cameras, there's nobody's going around taking when you're getting your picture taken because a big flash is going to, you're like,
Yeah.
give me that camera. But um, like somebody just saying, "I'm Lee Harvey Oswald." Okay. And then they're not, but because you've never seen the other person, you've never met the other person.
Well, in my opinion, all the other people that saw a person say they're going to do this to the president and was shooting at a target, those people should have been arrested for not alerting the authorities when someone says something like that.
Yeah. But back then it could have been, "Oh, are you good?" And then, yeah. And then you're home, "Pass the corn, honey." "Well, that guy was a bit nutty at the ranch today, wasn't he?" "Yeah, yeah, he was. Yeah." "Should we tell somebody about it?" "No, I'm not going to say nothing. I'm not getting involved." And even back then, though, like people like, who would you say? Who do you talk to? Who would I call? The
The
president?
FBI.
Well, exactly. But think about it back then, like in the 60s, how many people thought about calling the FBI?
Well, their headquarters was right next to the police station in Dallas. It couldn't have been that long of a
See,
walk.
I guess that is the thing. They might have seen him all the time. Maybe I'll catch one of them going for coffee. Yeah, yeah. And if I see one, but if I don't, I won't say nothing.
I had Paul Abbott on. His episode will be coming up. Well, when we're recording this, it'll probably be up tomorrow. But he had a 30-minute footage that I've never seen before on the JFK thing. So I just sat there in amazement playing it the whole time. But it shows the armored car backing into the police station, trying to back in. And then it shows them opening up the back of the armored truck and all these people or trying to figure out like a way to get Oswald in there. And it was like 15 minutes before Oswald was transferred and then 15 minutes after. Like you see it on CNN, they have the thing on YouTube you can watch. Oswald gets walked out and then Jack Ruby jumps out, shoots Oswald, and then an ambulance comes up, they get him in the ambulance and they drive off. There's a cut there. Nobody knows about that little cut. What happened was Oswald got shot, Jack Ruby got tackled. They throw Jack Ruby in the police station and they drag Oswald back inside. I played the full clip. It'll be up, like I said, tomorrow when we're recording this. And it's so weird because I always just thought Oswald got tossed right in the ambulance and then was out of the basement.
But here's one to think about. Like even with that cut, here's the thing to think about. Why is the ambulance there? Like the ambulance shouldn't be there waiting for him. Like if they're waiting, but like what happened to the armored car that they were going to transport him in? Where did it go?
it had to drive back out so the ambulance could leave.
Exactly. Do they show that though? Like they don't show
Yeah,
the car.
and they don't show that in the cut one, but in the full 30-minute one, you see all of
Yeah,
that happen.
that's what I mean. So whenever there's a cut in, the amount of cuts that are in the like the JFK one, for example, like the Zapruder film, when you see it and you go, that's a cut, and that's a cut, and you go, what are they cutting? Like why? Like so you don't trust anything that has a cut in it because you go, what did they take out? I would never think that they would add something, but you kind of go, what did they take out? Why did they take out something? It's missing. And from what you're saying, from it being live and like it might not have been that big a deal. They show them being dragged out and things like that, but there is stuff going on. But that's a very interesting, that thing you sent me, that's a very interesting how they're dressed exactly the same, except for the color of the trousers. But same jumper, same shirt, hands in the same position. The two men flanking them dressed in the same colored suits. You kind of go, is that like, did they give him that jumper to put
Dude,
on?
it could be a coincidence, but I didn't, unless the cardigan is a form of way they transfer prisoners.
No, it wouldn't be unless it's got blood on it, or he's got like blood on his shirt.
No, they don't have
Uh,
blood on there.
no, I mean under the jumper, which is why they gave him like the sweater, which is why they gave him a sweater.
Well, then someone must have beat him up in jail because this was like they're showering going to the courthouse.
Well, no, like here, like the clothes he was wearing.
Yeah, it's red to cover
Well,
up blood.
yeah, like the white. Well, also, I'm not just the white shirt he's got underneath. Like if he would have been standing to get close to the president, he would have been in a suit.
Who, Oswald?
No, Sirhan, or the guy in the picture, the
Luigi.
jumper. Yeah, it's Luigi. He would have been in a suit.
I don't know.
Well, how else? It's just how would he
He
get
wasn't.
close to
He
the?
didn't shoot the president. He killed the healthcare CEO over here.
Oh, that guy. Oh, this is yeah. I
That's not
see.
Sirhan. That's not Sirhan.
No, okay, but still, that is really cool that he wouldn't have had blood on him because
That was from 1963 to 2024. There's that same almost iconic exact image.
it is interesting. That could be a fluke kind of thing,
That's what
but
I know. That's what I'm saying. But it's still weird. It's like,
it is really weird but the weird part about it is
and then Luigi's saying he's not guilty, and if he ends up admitting to being guilty, then people are just going to assume Oswald must have been the same thing.
yeah, because the weird part is of course he's guilty.
I think he's. I think he is.
Oh well, they've got pictures of him.
Yeah, that's what I.
Well, actually, you can't really tell. Can you?
Yeah, people say that unless you can grow a unibrow in like 2 days, I'm like a lot of people can. I think.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Or yeah. That's very interesting. That's very interesting. Ah,
The
well,
world's
Robbie.
dark, but hopefully we get a documentary out on some of this stuff. It'd be cool to do like a YouTube series on it.
Well, it's been quite a journey, and I'm looking forward to finding out some of this stuff. I like that. Going back to historical accuracy, one of the coolest things about history is we can't prove anything.
Very
So,
true.
the winners write the history books. So I believe that we should try and keep history as accurate as we can, because when we start making changes, you start to forget things like why we don't do things anymore because that was a bad idea, like things like that, where they, the reason why, the great fires of San Francisco and or disasters happened, there was certain things they did, the fire of London, there was a reason why we don't do stuff like that anymore.
The government made
And
the problem of letting true crime be a fantasy for a lot of people because now everyone's like a citizen sleuth going and digging into
yeah,
every
aren't
corner.
they? And it didn't, it took a show like CSI to, I've heard real CSIs talk about, for example, like luminol, and luminol is you basically got to wear like a hazmat suit when you use that stuff. It stinks and it's caustic, and you basically have like a bug sprayer and you're like it doesn't come in like there's and then the blood just appears and or this or whatever fluids else is, it's not like that at all. But CSI needed to and it they needed to change it because and it takes a good amount of time for that to happen. Like like an hour has to go by or something like that before things to set in. So it's but that's the fantasy, isn't it? The true crime and the people want to be able to solve these things. And strangely enough, with the true crime, I'm surprised that somebody just hasn't done a thing on it and going, let's solve this JFK thing. What do you think? There's still a lot of people who talk about it, but there's been nobody who's like, they haven't dedicated like a TV show to actually like I could imagine like Geraldo trying, back in the day, we're trying to solve the JFK case and basically opening up Lee Harvey Oswald's casket and it's empty and it's the stuff that has to happen. And it's just it's bonkers how important this was because it was the president, but at the same time how amateurish everything was done. It's nuts. My phone, 5%.
All right, I gotta let you go. I appreciate the time, Casper. Is there a place where people can find your links?
Just Linktree or KasperMichaels.com, and that has all my links.
All right. Well, I'll make sure I link those in the description. Thank you, everybody, for listening to this episode of Out of the Blank. Stay tuned to our next episode.